The elections of next November are going to be crucial in defining the political future of the United States. These are elections that will also show the importance that the Latin community has in the United States and how them voting can change the electoral results. On the past presidential elections in which Joe Biden was elected in office, Arizona was very important in that victory because of the Hispanic vote. Today, we present this interview with Marco López. He is a Democratic pre-candidate to govern the state of Arizona. If he gets elected, he's going to be the first governor of a state of the American Union born in Mexico. Today we are in Phoenix, Arizona. We are with a Democratic candidate to govern the state. Thank you very much, Marco López.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
It's very amazing that you're actually a frontier candidate because you were born in Mexico, but you were grown up here in Arizona.
Yeah, it's an interesting story because a lot of what we see nowadays is that individuals come to the U.S. to be born, and then many go back and might never live in the U.S.
You lived in the U.S. and you went to be born. Your mother actually went to have you in Mexico.
Right. So I lived in my mom's womb in Nogales, Arizona. And when it was time to be born on the 7th of April, she went back to Nogales, Sonora, to the clinic where my older sister was born and where my younger sister was born too, and had me, and I was back at home in Nogales, in the same home that they live at today.
But actually, your grandparents lived in the Mexican part.
Yeah, my grandparents lived in Nogales, Sonora for many years until recently my grandmother moved to Nogales, Arizona. But that's really where they grew up. That's where my parents went to school. But they came to Arizona because of that belief that Arizona is a place of opportunity.
Well, you're the story of a success story of being a dreamer, of coming here to the United States. Your father's a plumber. You started working, you've worked with your father as a plumber, but since you were very, very young, you decided that you wanted to go into politics.
Yeah, look, I thought that because of my mom's example, always being involved in the parent-teacher association at school, always insisting on us, if you want to make a change, you've got to be part of it. You cannot sit in the sidelines and think that other people are going to do the work that you can ably do. So do it for you. Do it. And so always get involved. So it was really my mom, and what a lot of people don't realize is that I thought I was too young to run for mayor when I was 16. Now, obviously, the law doesn't allow you. So I convinced my mom to run for the city council in Nogales. And when I was time to...
And she did?
And she did, and she won, and she was on the city council. Her term ended the year that mine began as mayor. So it was an interesting...
You became major very, very young. You were only 22. You had just graduated from political science.
I had just graduated December of 1999 from the University of Arizona in Tucson. And I decided, after the encouragement of different political mentors and advisors that I looked up to, they told me something that was really interesting. They said, look, a lot of people are going to tell you that it's not your turn. But in politics, there's no turns. If you're ready and you can go convince enough voters, then it's your turn. Don't wait for someone else to give you the green light to have an opportunity. You got to take it and talk to the voters. Let them decide.
That's what my mother always told me. She would say, do you know what? Do things whenever you have to do them, because it could wake you up, the sound of someone else that's doing it for you. So you have to do it at that moment.
Correct.
And you've been lucky. I mean, lucky because luck, you work for it. If you want success, you'll work for it.
Correct.
But you've been in the right place a couple of times. Even after being a major, you met Janet Napolitano, who was a very important woman in your life, in your political life, but also in teaching you the way of working here. Yeah,
look, I think that she was convinced that she wanted to go from Attorney General to run for governor. What had not been done is bringing together Democrats and Republicans in support of her candidacy. I was the mayor, and what I understood at 22 is that I wasn't a threat to any of the other older mayors because, you know, I think Ray Barain, who was the mayor of Douglas, was the next youngest one, and he was close to 60 years old. And so I wasn't a threat. And so that was my way in. That's how I was able to convince Republicans and independents and Democrats to work together, because if I could do it, I wasn't a threat. I was 22 years old. Who's this young guy? And so that's how I was able to work across
But you
parties.
were a 22-year-old guy that was very focused on what he wanted. And after being mayor, you start working directly with Janet Napolitano, first in the state, and then you will work for the federal government.
Yeah, so when she was governor, after a year, she asked me to join her administration. Eventually, I worked my way up to be the director of the Department of Commerce. And then when President Obama took office in 2009, they appointed me to be the chief of staff at Customs and Border Protection, which is the largest law enforcement and trade agency in the country, 60,000 employees and a budget of $15 billion, the largest. But it wasn't anything that was unique or new to me. Remember, this is the beauty of growing up on the border.
But let's talk about the border, and let's talk about security. I've worked a lot on security in Mexico City. Also, it's very close what happens in the United States. For example, drug smuggling comes from Mexico, but here in the United States, you have here in the United States more people dead every year from fentanyl than the 100,000 people that have been killed in the past 3 years in Mexico. It's a really complicated problem. How do you protect the border so the fentanyl doesn't come? And also, was there anything, have you ever, I'm sure you talked about it, the gun trafficking back to Mexico, because the drug cartels in Mexico get natured by the American arms.
Right. So those are two very important issues, very serious issues. And the third one that I'm going to add.
How did that work?
Well, I'll explain, but the third one that we need to add to this list is the human smuggling, the trafficking of women and children. Very serious as well.
And now it's horrible because who's moving all those migrants are the big drug cartels.
The cartels. So we had a very clear vision for how we were tackling these issues. And it was this concept of corresponsabilidad, that we had a co-responsibility with Mexico and the United States in partnership to tackle, through intelligence, through information sharing, the cartel movement of drugs, of guns, and of people. And over the years, I think that there has been waves of support in various administrations. Some have been really focused on that partnership. Others have been really focused on sovereignty. And so today, we might be in a stage in that political relationship that Mexico leans more towards the discussion of sovereignty than it did in the past. In the past, when I was there, with Calderón and with Peña, it was really focused on working together to solve these problems on both sides, drugs and money.
Has it been difficult, this coordination right now?
Well, I haven't been in government since 2011. So as an observer, first as a participant in drugs, people, and smuggling going north, and then working with money and guns going south, I thought that there was understanding and agreements in place to be able to tackle those issues, south and north.
If you become governor, how are you going to treat? I know the borders are federal competence,
right?
But how are you going to work with that? How are you going to work to be able to keep Arizona a very safe place, and also to be able to have people, Mexican people, work here for all the jobs that we've been talking about are needed here in the United States?
I think on immigration, we have an obligation to push the federal government to legalize DACA recipients, kids who have grown up in the U.S., that this is the only country that they know. They deserve.
Those are the 11 million of dreamers.
Those are dreamers. Of the 11 million immigrants that are believed to be in the U.S., about 2 million, 1.8 to 2 million are dreamers. Those deserve a pathway to citizenship. Their families deserve a pathway to legalization. And so that begins to expand that universe of 2 million. And then the reality is that this, to your point, the economy will continue to depend on migration to the U.S. And obviously not only Mexican migration, but migration generally. We see the ones, the pressing issue, we see it here closer to our borders. So the federal government needs to finally resolve that. They haven't resolved this since 1984, the last time when President Reagan tackled the issue in a collective manner. No other president has come close to an agreement.
But it's a very difficult decision, right? Because you do need this people, this migrant people to work, but also they can't come here illegally because you need to protect your country.
Right. Well, it shouldn't be it's only a difficult decision because it's been politicized. The reality is that if you don't have a system to properly regulate individuals that are coming and going, they're going to come anyway. They're just going to go around your system. And this is what we see. This is what we've seen since the 90s. Because there's no regular way of doing it, people go around it. And so you have to solve that so that you ease the stress in between the ports of entry. I think we can get there.
How do you legalize it?
Well, you've got to have a system that allows people to register, and you can quickly process their visas so that they can come work. Those that want to come work here long term, that there's a system in place to practically do that for them and monitor them so that they're not committing crimes. They're good residents of our country. They're good people. We know they're good people. They live in our community.
Maybe temporal visas.
But if they want to go back, that the system allows them to go back, visit their families, and then come back if it's a seasonal type of employment. We now have the technology to be able to do that. It shouldn't be this difficult. It's only, like I repeat myself, it's only difficult because politics is in the way.
Well, you have created this very important program called the Global Entry, that you do know who's coming into the country,
right.
And you do have the people very well seen into everything they do. And it's a way to protect your country and to make it easier traveling. It could be something like that.
Exactly.
But for migrants?
Well, remember, it started with the Sentry program at the ports of entry and the FAST program at the border with Canada. When I was there, we expanded it to air travel, global entry. It's a very unique system of trust. This is why it's called a trusted traveler program. That every once in a while you're going to get checked.
It's important because it's trusted because you know who's coming in.
You know who's coming in. And this is the same thing you could do with workers. This is the same thing you can do with people who want to continue to grow our economy. Again, we're creating more jobs than we have workers for in the United States. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you create a system to properly regulate and process those workers, or you don't, and they're going to come anyway. Right now, we're in that second category. We're creating those jobs. We don't have a system in place to properly be able to process them, so they're coming around the system. Remember.
And you don't know who's in your territory.
And you don't know who's here. 50% of them you know because they're tourists who overstayed their visa. These are people who you know decided they were going to come shopping to Scottsdale and then decided not to go back. 50% of the people are in that category. So you know who they are. You just don't know if they ever went back.
And you know where they are.
And you don't know where they are. And so that's the opportunity. We now have technology to be able to do that. And you have the willingness of people to want to come forward and properly be processed. No one wants to live in the shadows. Unless you're a bad guy and you're committing crimes, you're committing crimes here or back home, wherever you live, you're going to live in the shadows if you're up to no good. Most of the people, most of them, want to do good. All they want is an opportunity for themselves and their families. And so that's why it's important that the federal government gets to a place that they can solve this issue. But it's a hot potato that nobody wants to tackle because they want to use it for political purposes. Donald Trump uses it. From before he announced, he came down that stupid escalator in New York and said, we're going to build a wall because we got to keep Mexicans out. And that was his whole campaign.
But he couldn't do that here.
Of course he can't. Because it's ridiculous to think that you're going to keep people out with a wall.
Especially when you have all this technology. How is your campaign going to be?
Look, so we're going to be focused really strictly on jobs, healthcare, and education. Because it's basic, right? If you're healthy and you have a good education, you're going to get a good job. If you don't have any of those things, it's going to be hard to live, hard to pay for a mortgage, hard to get a car, how to go find a job. And so that's what we got to be focused on. Democrats lose when we don't stay focused. If we don't play offense, if we only play defense, and Democrats are really good at playing defense. Republicans are really good at playing offense. So what happens is, You know what T-ball is? T-ball is
No.
like a little game when you're 6 years
Ay,
old.
sí, sí, sí,
You
sí,
play
sí.
T-ball. They put the ball on the thing, and you hit it, right?
Like cricket.
And everyone chases the ball. All the kids, all the baseball team chase the ball to third base. Those are the Democrats. The Republicans hit the ball to third base, and everyone on the field chases it to third base. That's the problem. We've got to stay focused.
Now the state is governed by Republicans. Would that be easier, or do people change here, or how would that work?
Yeah, so we've got a great opportunity because what we know is that what helped elect President Biden last year in 2020 was Latinos, was Native Americans, as was rural voters. We can replicate that. We have 1.2 million people in Arizona that are Hispanic that can vote. 500,000 of them actually go out and vote. This is why this interview is so important, and being able to reach the homes of Latinos in America, in Arizona, is so important. We have the power to make elections go our way. Nationally, we elected President Biden. We have President Biden today and not Donald Trump because it was Latinos and Native American people in Arizona that made the difference.
Latinos and Hispanic people could make you win, could make you be the next governor of Arizona.
Without a doubt.
But they don't vote. How are you going to make them vote?
Well, we got to wake them up. If you're here because of you want opportunities, if you want to have the opportunity to succeed in this state, this is why you're here, then you got to participate. You can't complain. You got to take it in your hands. The future is in your hands. If you let the opportunity pass you by, you have no right to complain. When Donald Trump is president in 2024 because you didn't participate, it's your fault. That's the message. So don't complain. Do. Act. Get involved. This is why you came to your country. Imagine how many people come every single year through the desert, through this train that you've been covering in your shows, from Guatemala all the way up to the border. People get killed, raped, hurt, vandalized, terrorized, but they come here because they want an opportunity to succeed, right? And so that's it. Then they get here and they don't want to participate. They don't want to be part of that change. This is a democracy. Nobody assures us that this democracy is going to live on unless people actually get involved. So this is the opportunity that we have. This is why it's so wonderful to be able to reach out and talk to media from all over the world.
So that'll be next November.
This opportunity is next November. The primary is in August 2nd, and then November 8th is the general. But the reality is that it's about more than 2022. It's about 2024. Because this is the, in a story, you have the first chapter. This is the pre-chapter to what happens in 2024. If we don't get it right in 2022, we're going to see Donald Trump again in 2024.
Because he's working for that.
He's working for that. Every single day that guy wakes up, as crazy as he is, he wakes up every single day and figures out, how can I manipulate the election so that whether I win or lose, I'm still declared the president.
And Donald Trump has been campaigning here for the Republicans.
For the Republicans, he has his own candidate. Kerry Lake is his candidate here in the state of Arizona already. He's got a candidate for the Secretary of State because he knows that if he's got a governor and he's got a Secretary of State that will not certify the election results, then Congress can appoint him President of the United States. Can you believe that? In the United States, that can happen. And he knows it. And so he's on it. Every single day he wakes up and he works on that goal. It's our fault if we allow him to do it.
Thank you so much for this interview, Marco.
Thank you.